Up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Kasey of Deadlands. It is great to be able to talk with you. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Dude, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's an honor to be able to have you here. I forgot what year it was. I mean, time is such a blur now, but the first and most recent time I saw you was at the show, your headlining show at the Meadows, which was a kick-ass time, excellent lineup, and a killer show. So it's an honor to finally be able to have this interview now and to be able to talk with you.
Thank you so much, man. It's so funny that you bring that up. We're going to be performing at the Meadows on the 25th
Of
of June.
Oh, really?
So we'll be back there, and we're hoping that we can get we've been eyeballing this band Sage for such a long time, and they're awesome. So we're hoping that they're joining us on the bill.
Oh, hell yeah, they're cool. Yeah, that's awesome. But with this new single out, Limbo, and having a couple of other great singles coming out, is this like a good representation of the direction of Deadlands? Is this showing where you're all going to be heading in the future, or is there a lot more experimentation to be done and a lot more to be heard? What could we be expecting from Deadlands? Are these singles any clear indication of what is to come?
Honestly, like, we're really just trying to find our sound at the moment. And we're just experimenting. Like, we're just seeing what vibes with us the most, but also, like, we really don't care to be locked into a sound anyway, because what we have found is that the the most successful bands and the bands that are always so true to their identity will change throughout time. And like, to have their signature sound, of course, like we're still trying to find that groove, I think. um but like, we are so open to any sort of musical journeys that we go on. We are so open to just exploring the idea, because I feel like when you lock yourself into a box of, I can only sound this way, I can only be heavy, or I can only be soft, like, you are limiting you and your audience to just pure art and emotion. Bring Me the Horizon is like the best example that I use for this, because they have evolved so much as a band, and their first record sounds nothing like
Yeah.
their latest record,
That's
right?
one of the biggest, I would say, like evolutionary sounds that there is. And I'm sorry to you bring up a very valid point too, because I've always associated Deadlands since I discovered you at that show. Like, I was saying to myself that this is the right time with the rise of Bad Omens and Spirit Box and Sleep Token and even Lorna Shore on the heavier spectrum of the combining genres and all that. So like, I do think that Deadlands is, I would say, a sound that very much, I know this sort of sounds like it's contradicting from what you're telling me in a way, but it does sound like a sound for metal and rock of 2025, at least. Like, it is something that
Oh,
I think
yeah.
of when I hear our scene right now in 2025.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, listen, like right now we are in the heavy metal and rock sphere, like, and we're absolutely going to embrace that. And I do hope that we always have a heavy side to us. All I'm saying is that, like, we're not closing ourselves off. Everything is up for interpretation. Everything is up for grabs. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to scream until the day I die. But I just think we're having fun, and we're just seeing what we feel is closest to our identity.
Do you have a vision? Do you ever go into it with a vision, though? Was the making of any song that we're hearing from Deadlands, did it start off with a preconceived idea in a way? Or are you
Oh,
very much
yeah.
like right in the studio and just see how you're feeling?
Absolutely. This whole album, or EP, I guess I should say, has been based off of the seven deadly sins. So before writing each song, we would say, okay, what sin are we going to tackle today? What's the vibes? What's it going to feel like? What's the messaging behind it? And I guess I'll use our latest single, Limbo, for example. When tackling that song, we worked with Justin DeBliek. He is absolutely phenomenal. He works with Motionless in White. He's worked with just so many bands that are heavy hitters in the scene right now, and he's just a genius. So when I was writing the lyrics for this song, you know, Limbo is lust. Limbo is about the deadly sin, lust. So I, as a person, like, we could have went two ways. We could have said, like, okay, like, super sexy, like, get down, like, hot and heavy, and all that stuff, which has been done a million times before. But also, like, that's just not me as a person. Like, I am just not. That's not my brand, I guess you could say. And more power to anybody else who's like that. It's just for me, like, I know I would rather write about the more hurtful side of it, where the premise of limbo essentially is like you are in love with somebody who does not feel the same way and they don't care. Like they're doing everything that they can to do to get what they want, and I know so many people can relate to that, and they have felt like they've just been left in limbo from this person, just trying their best to not care about you. And ultimately, like, that's where the deadly sin comes in, of like whether this person who is feeling that they are in limbo are going to self-destruct on themselves. They can also destruct on the other person. And you can see that in the music video that we did. Actually, I think you know our friend Alex Kubatsos
Yup,
of Black
AK.
Wolf Imaging.
Shout out
Yeah,
to
he is
shout out to AK.
absolutely amazing. And he did such a great job capturing that. Like, I gave him a concept and we totally ran with it. He actually had the idea that I eat a heart, and originally we were going to do that for the Gluttony music video. And then we were like, wait a second, like, why don't we use this for lust? And it just worked out so perfectly. And I think overall it ties the message into a neat little bow that it's going to bite you in the ass no matter what.
You led me perfectly into the next two questions I wanted to ask you. I'll start off with the first one that came into my mind. But having the seven deadly sins as your concept, in a way, is this more or less your? Because I think we all, not to sound like the preacher, but we all sin at times. So
Oh, yeah.
we're all guilty of gluttony or lust in that sense. So is this more or less, maybe, are you singing about your personal experiences with these sins, or any things that you've witnessed or experienced, or are you like maybe kind of like researching different aspects of it, like different, how there's different interpretations of that sin throughout history and whatnot? Or am I completely overthinking it to even ask this?
No, not at all. It was a little bit of both, honestly. Like, originally the deadly sins concept really came from just like, oh, it's super cool, and the aesthetic is super awesome. But as I was writing these songs, like, villain was the first one that we wrote. So that, like, pride, I am a very prideful person, like, through and through, and it's something that I'm trying to work on. But like, these songs, ultimately, I just tried to pull like the ugliest parts of myself and put them down on paper, so that I can understand, like, why am I thinking the way that I am? How can I fix the way that I'm thinking? And ultimately, like, how can I get better as a person internally? And I hope that people will do the same thing when they listen to these songs. Why do I like this song? Do the lyrics relate to me? How can do the lyrics relate to me because of an outside source that this has been done to me, or do the lyrics relate to me because I need to fix myself and what I've been doing? And for some of the songs, like I think greed, I don't find myself to be very greedy. I'm sure we all had our moments, but that one was one of the harder ones to write, just because I felt that I couldn't relate to it on a personal level. However, like, given the state of what we're in right now, of the economy and politics, as much as I don't really get into politics that much, like, we can all see, like, the overarching government as a whole is just greedy and will take and take and take until there's nothing left, until you're sitting there with nothing and they've lined their pockets already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As far as gluttony, I think gluttony was a really good one that I could write, because I tried to encapsulate different facets of gluttony. And one of the things that I feel like a lot of people might brush over is the addiction and eating disorder aspect of it. Like these are really heavy issues that I don't think are spoken about enough. As much as we've gotten better as a society to bring them to everybody's attention, like it's still not a perfect solution that we have right now. And I think the more attention that we draw over to these of like, we have these things going on in our brain, these demons that tell us that we need something that we don't actually need. And ultimately, like we just need to appreciate ourselves. And one of the lyrics in this song is like, if I take away the shame, could you face what's underneath? Like if I took away the shame of everything that I'm doing, like could I face the person that I really am underneath all the bad things that I'm doing?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just a combination of both.
Be,
To longly answer your question.
That's totally fine. That's totally fine. I appreciate it. It was very in depth and answered a lot of, you already answered a lot of other questions. So in the end,
Nice.
worked perfectly. But with this, because being that you are a band that will experiment with different sounds and don't really have many limitations, obviously this would influence the lyrics and whatnot. But how the music itself that we're hearing, how did this sort of concept or this sort of idea maybe lead to the sound that we're hearing now? Did it almost feel like you couldn't feel that there was any other style of music or any other way you could express it other than the sound that we're hearing now?
Yes and no. I think just as a whole, like heavy's in our bones, like I grew up listening to like 3 Days Grace and nothing nearly to the caliber of what I listen to now, but I had always had like a love for like the dark aesthetic and everything like that. And then once I found out about metal and really started to appreciate it, like my identity like stuck to it because I just felt seen and I felt heard like a lot of us do. And as far as CJ goes, like he himself, like he's gone through some shit himself where like metal has gotten him through and music has gotten him through. Um, and I think definitely like we could have put this album in any other sound, but like metal is the most fun. What can I
Of
say?
course. I mean, of course. I mean, hey, you're on a metal channel right now, so yeah,
Exactly.
of course. But speaking of which, because you have clearly such a great visual aesthetic and you have a great presentation of your art, and there is sort of like, there is a Deadlands aesthetic, not just within your sound, but in the whole presentation. And working with, an artist like AK and your music video and whatnot, do you have to almost, every artist has to quote unquote, maybe for this not, kill their darlings at one point, maybe they'll go in with an idea and then they really have to kick it off of a cliff and whatnot. So does everybody that you work with need to be in the same headspace as you, so to speak, or is it better if you and CJ and AK and everybody are kind of like in your own individual worlds and you're kind of like each bringing in your own visions together? Is it more of like a hybrid rather than sort of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a hybrid because like essentially CJ has been delving more into the melodic stuff and the lyrical stuff as of late. He actually, the reason I think one of the biggest reasons why is because he's read this book. Oh my god, I can't remember the name. I literally just read it too, but it was by the author Pat Pattinson and it's about songwriting. So it's like it's almost like giving you the formula of like how to be a good songwriter. Um, maybe it's literally just called How to Write Better Music. I don't even know, but he has been really getting into the melodic stuff and the lyrical stuff, which has always been like super important to me. So now it's really cool to see that like he's delving more into like my world, whereas he would take over like the instrumental stuff. And now we're really like focusing on meshing it just between the two of us and then taking it to somebody else. Obviously, unless we feel like we need to write a song with somebody specifically. But like this whole EP was really very experimental, especially being that like we knew it was going to be experimental because we wanted each sin to sound different. And I think we did that with working with multiple producers. Like I think it really did come out the way that it was supposed to come out. But as for the next record, like we want to blend our two worlds together and then have somebody like bring it to life and essentially just like put it in color. If that makes sense.
It definitely does. Do you think that the inspiration is the idea is having the seven deadly sins, but after after we run out of sins, there's definitely going to be a lot more other concepts to explore and whatnot. Is inspiration something that you technically seek out? Do you go out and look for the inspiration, or do you just kind of have to let it hit you?
It depends. Like I I think for myself personally, I need to be in the right headspace of like, all right, I'm writing a song because I have ADHD. So like me focusing, that's why I will yap, by the way. But like me focusing on other things, like I will get distracted by literally anything if I am not like locked in. But when I do get locked in, like I will do as much research as I possibly can to get everything like making sense. Like it has to make sense. That's like the biggest thing for me. It has to make sense. People have to understand what it's about, and like it can be so surface level too. Like because I just love to be multifaceted, and really to answer your question, like the inspiration to me, like I guess I have to seek it out in terms of just like when I am writing, like I have to seek out the perfect words, and it's almost like a puzzle for me. It's really crazy.
Especially like, have you ever had like the best lyrics ever written, and then like they're always like one syllable over like every arrangement that.
Yes, yes. Oh, it's the worst. I hate that feeling.
I'd imagine that songwriting book is also like maybe like there's like a whole chapter that's almost like English class all over again.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's what it feels like. Honestly, it's literally songwriting grammar.
Yeah. Well, have you always needed to hear the music before you came up with the lyrics, or did was there already even music presented to you, and then that's how you even thought of the seven deadly sins idea?
So I actually feel that the vocals should come first, at least 90% of the time.
Wow.
Because, put it this way, when you have an instrumental and you're laying down vocals on it, like you locked yourself in. You can only do it to this guitar and these drums and this bass and this production in the background. But when you are just building a melody, just a melody, you can do anything you want. Literally anything that comes to your mind, like that is where it starts. And you are grabbing from the air and expelling it from your mouth versus like you have to code it or whatever, and then you have to like, to me I just feel that you don't limit yourself as much when you just start with the vocals.
I rarely get the answer. I mean, I've gotten it a couple of times. I think the one off the top of my head I can remember is when I interviewed Vincent from the Acacia strain, and he said that lyrics usually come first. A lot of times, 9 times out of 10, vocalists, lyricists will always tell me that the lyrics would come last.
Damn,
And
that's crazy. I never would have expected that.
well, some of them would tell me, and I don't think that it's a flaw in any sense, but like they sometimes need the music in order to get that feeling, because maybe the
Absolutely.
music and the riffs and the arrangements maybe trigger that certain emotion or that source of inspiration.
Oh, absolutely. And listen, like I have written to instrumentals before, and I there is absolutely no problem with it. Like especially if you're happy with the end product, like absolutely go for it. And also, if you're trying to capture a specific sound, like a specific riff, like of course, like by all means. I just think the best, at least the best things that I have written have just like come to me, and I figured them out before adding everything else.
And the last question I wanted to ask you is because with Deadlands having such a great sound, and again, I consider it like a sound of 2025 or the sound of the times, if you will. And I kind of wanted, feel free to give rant and go as nuts at this argument because we're just going to nerd out on music in a sense. But when I've interviewed a lot of musicians who may be a little bit older, I'm not going to assume your age, but like when I've interviewed like musicians who are older, like in the 40s or 50s kind of sense, and I would ask them like, who are their inspirations? A lot of times it would be metal artists, Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, all the classics, Metallica. And, like, and it would be like that for a lot of the times, or just straight rock, Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, and whatnot. But with younger music lovers, such as, like I would say for pretty much like 90s to now, being that we grew up with music like Linkin Park that combined all these genres together, being that we grew up with, like hard rock, like Evanescence being played on Z100 back in the day and all that, do you think that maybe that's why we are all of a sudden gravitating towards bands like Deadlands, bands like Sleep Token, Bad Omen, Spirit Box, etc.?
Well, first of all, the fact that you just put us in that same category is like so. Thank you.
Of course,
crazy.
Of course.
But I absolutely, like without hesitation, we are essentially creating new genres every single day just by blending the ones that already exist. You literally said it yourself, like we have Linkin Park blending everything together. We have Evanescence blending rock and then, female vocals, which was not really a thing back in the day. Like we have so much that is happening. One group that I really just commend so much for just being so unique and unapologetically themselves, and they are just, oh my god, I have no words for them because they're just so incredible. The Pretty Wild, like they are not only combining rock or metal or pop or rap, like they are doing everything plus EDM, like they are insane and they're hitting every single audience that listens to them, and it's so genuine. Like they as people have encompassed themselves in their sound so much, like that's them. Like I met them in person. I literally just spoke to Jill earlier today. Like they have encapsulated themselves so much by just being authentically them. And I think that's what we're seeing more of, especially that like the earth will weed out the disingenuous people. At least I would hope to believe.
Well,
and
the whole idea of like just being ourselves, which I advocate for, and you mentioned that has been, always stated through rock and punk and metal and all that. I just think there's always just been different ways to express it. I'm not trying to like say that metal or punk was flawed because of it, but like put it to you this way. All the people who were being themselves, they were listening to the same type of bands with, a similar kind of clique above that. Like they were listening to unequivocally punk bands, unequivocally metal bands, unequivocally hardcore bands. Now the people just genuinely being themselves are listening to a lot of the bands that do bleed all these genres together.
Exactly. And I find that so sick. And you said it yourself, Sleep Token, blending how many freaking genres? They're genreless.
Yeah.
You can't put them into a category. I guess if you're really trying, you can put them into metal, but they're just so unequivocally themselves and unique. And I want to know what their influences were. Like, I know I loved Britney Spears, Ariana Grande. I was an Ariana Grande stan for the longest time. And then, I still had the 3 Days Grace roots, and I did listen to a little bit of Linkin Park. Avenged Sevenfold is what got me really back into metal. And to think about all that, and I don't know, it's just crazy. Like I am very grateful to be living in this era of metal and music in general, to where we are like blending everything together and blurring the lines between metal and not, and pop and not, and it's just really cool to see.
Yeah, well, it's also like it's not just younger bands like that grew up with those influences, but it's also younger people in the industry who grew up with those influences as well. So you're seeing publicists and managers and all these people at record labels who maybe in our generation, a little bit older, a little bit younger, who have similar influences as we did, so therefore they're going to gravitate towards the artists that tend to kind of do something that was familiar yet fresh to them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time and for such an awesome conversation, and most of all, thank you for your music, and huge shout out to our mutual friend AK again. Is there just
love him.
Is there just anything else with Deadlands that you would like to promote? Like, when could we be expecting the full-length record? And what else we could be expecting for Deadlands in the near future? Feel free to plug everything away on here, if you're allowed to at this moment.
Thank you. Absolutely. First, thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
But I guess this will be the time where we plug that 7 will be out June 27th, and I'm so excited for that. And we're also, right after that, maybe not even a week and a half later, we're going on tour with Scene Queen and Girly. We'll have some headlining dates in between. We'll have some VIP for it. So I hope that I could see you there, and I hope anybody else watching will pick up a ticket and head out.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Deadlands. Be sure to pick up 7. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.